Well, our next speaker today is Abigail Cajiga. Abigail is an occupational therapist and children's ministry coordinator who has been working in disability-related fields in various capacities for 2 decades. She holds a bachelor's degree in theater with a minor in drama therapy, and obtained her master's degree in occupational therapy from Stockton University. Her many years of serving and working with diverse groups of people with incredible gifts and unique needs has fueled her desire to see the church more fully reflect God's kingdom. She attends Grace Church PCA in Rochester, New York with her husband and 3 children. And today, Abigail will be talking with us about thinking inside the small box. Welcome, Abigail.
Thank you. So if you're in a smaller church like mine with no formal disability ministry, you might feel years away from some of the things that are being talked about this week, like training buddies or building a sensory room. Maybe your struggle right now is that no one else notices who might be missing from your church body and the barriers that might be keeping them away. Maybe you're not sure how to make change when your building is small or old, or when you've already got a volunteer burnout issue. If that's your situation, I see you. I'm there too. And I'd like to empower you to do some big things through small steps using resources that you already have. So specifically today, we're going to talk through 3 ways that you can make an impact on the culture and accessibility of your church without asking for a new team, a new budget, without having to recruit a whole bunch of new volunteers. We're going to talk about using existing budgets and teams, showing your leadership the needs, and taking every opportunity to grow knowledge. Often when I'm participating in some of the things Key Ministry does, those idea shares or other Zoom meetings, I hear people asking things like, where do I even start? How do I start a disability ministry from nothing? So I'm sharing these ideas for those of us, me included, still in that beginning phase of trying to get things going and get our leadership on board. So if you want to work within existing budgets and teams, you can go to the ministry leaders. I like to go to them 1 month before the end of our fiscal year and say, do you have any money left over? Because often they do. Our office administrator let me know one year that she had some money left over in her congregational resources budget that she uses to buy the pew Bibles and the communion elements. And I said, can I use that to buy these dyslexia-friendly Bibles that just came out? Can we have some of those available? She was delighted to use the money for that. The next year I said, do you have any money left over this year? And she let me use that leftover money to buy items and put them in a bin, and we call it our sensory bin. We don't have room for a sensory room, so we have a bin at the back of our sanctuary for people to pick items out if they need it. I didn't have to ask the elders for that money. I just asked my friend in the office. My own budget, the children's ministry budget, there's often little amounts of money left over near the end of the year that I can just go buy a bunch of fidgets and put them in each of the classrooms and tell my volunteers, hey, offer these to all the kids, and you'll find the kids that you know really need it will pick them up. And then you're starting to introduce your volunteers to universal design, just little bits at a time. Deacons are super helpful in this strategy because they manage the money, right? And they're doing the facilities. So when our deacons started talking about remodeling our bathrooms, I was able to say, hey, could you just take out the stall dividers, take out the toilet that's broken, and then without any added money at all, we've got a family-sized bathroom. Woohoo! I didn't have to say, let's do a $6,000 renovation. I also took that opportunity, Ryan Wolf from Ability Ministry, he gives away grants, if you didn't know it, look him up, to build a universal changing bench. So he gave us that money. My handy daddy built it, and we put it in that family bathroom, and now we have this fully accessible bathroom that really kind of cost the deacons nothing. So shortly after that, they were getting ready to restripe the parking lot, and they came to me and said, hey, since we're doing this, what do you think about our accessible parking spaces? Which was great, because they weren't really accessible. So now they are. And I had that little bit of a rapport going. And now, if you get to know those ministry team leaders in that way, we kind of offer them ready-to-go resources that are kind of just giving them something without asking anything from them, you'll start to develop that rapport with them, and they'll come looking for you to ask you for help with things. That office administrator came back to me and said, they want me to make a cheat sheet for the greeters. Can you put in here all the things about children's ministry? So I did. And then I added another page of okay, there's family bathrooms downstairs. There's accessible spots. You just kind of shove it in there, and we handed it to the greeters, and they were like, yes, thank you. Now I don't have to wonder when people ask me questions. I can look at my little cheat sheet. So just giving them kind of free resources that they don't have to make, they love that. Our next idea that we're going to talk about is showing them the needs. Your leadership, your ministry team leaders, your volunteers, they don't always get it. They don't see it the way that we do, the people that are coming to this conference. So you have to kind of tell them those stories that connect your ideas that you're trying to get in place with real people. At my church right now, there's not a lot of real people to tell stories about. That's the problem. And so I try to connect it with people who are missing. So when the deacons were talking about those family bathrooms and the accessible spaces, I said, these pew cutouts that we have in our sanctuary, they're for wheelchair users, right? Have you seen anybody pull a wheelchair into those spaces? Maybe it's because they pull into our parking lot and take a look at our accessible parking and they just drive right away. So connecting it with real people that might be missing, we all know the numbers, the statistics have been mentioned of how many kids have autism, how many people in our community have a disability. And if you're looking at your church body and you aren't seeing those numbers, think about those people that are missing and those barriers that might be keeping them from showing up, and point those out with concrete, specific stories that people can relate to so that they can kind of see what you're seeing, even if people aren't there. Another example I'll give is when I asked our administrator, hey, can you start printing out large print versions of our liturgy? We're a liturgical church, we do responsive readings, but they're way up at the front on a slide, so there might be people who can't read those. She's a little hesitant, and I said, oh, and by the way, my daughter's a new reader, so she really loves reading along with us, but she can't do it far away, and it kind of clued her in, oh, it's not just for people who are blind or people with low vision. It could be a lot of groups benefiting from that, and just kind of pointing out those real people that they see and they know encourages them to get on board with you. That third strategy, take every opportunity to educate. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's nice for you. You're on your church's staff. So you're talking to the deacons all the time. You're at meetings where these conversations are coming up, which obviously wasn't always true for me. But if you're not that person, if you're not on your staff and you're thinking, how will I get them to listen to me? Or how will I be in these conversations? Start serving on those teams where you want to see that change. Join the greeting team. Join the children's ministry team. Join your outreach team. Sign up to set up for your fellowship events. It just happened to me on Sunday that I walked into our lunch meeting for us to discuss our budget, and I looked around and I said, who set up these tables this way? If you join those teams that they always need volunteers anyway, then you can be that person that says, hey, well, we're setting up these tables. If we did it this way, it would make a lot of room for our friends in wheelchairs. And you can start having those conversations, and as you do, you'll find your people, right? You'll find the person who's a PT, the person who has a child at home with a disability that they haven't brought to church yet. You'll find that person who's a retired special ed teacher, because they'll hear you talking and they'll go, ooh, I want to be friends with her. And you'll get them kind of on your team. You'll start finding each other. And if you are serving and deep diving into the body of Christ, that gives you those opportunities to have those conversations with people who share your passion, or people who have that expertise, or people with both. As you're finding yourself in those conversations, then bring those people with you to your leadership to start asking questions that help expand their thinking. So if they start talking about, okay, who are we going to get to do the Advent readings and read those while we light the candle on the Advent wreath? Instead of saying, well, maybe you should think more inclusively while you do that. And then they just blink at you. God, I don't know how to do that. You can say, how could we think more open-mindedly about who to ask this year? What if we ask that kid who speaks in scripts? You know how he always repeats his favorite movie? What if we give him this script 3 weeks ahead of time and his parents help him do it, and then he reads it and they do the lighting of the candle? What if we have someone whose first language isn't English read it in their native language? What if we have someone who's nonverbal light the candle while their family member reads the reading? And you'll get them kind of thinking the way that you think. You can start small with just those little moments that you find here and there in your conversations. When you find your people and your obvious allies, and you have more and more of those conversations, you'll start taking those small steps and you'll begin to see progress, not only in the physical accessibility of your space, that's very important, and your programs, but also growth in the culture and leadership of your church. So you can help them start thinking about everything that you do from a perspective of inclusion and belonging. So before I finish up, I just want you to think about, okay, I can't start a new team today. Nobody's going to give me a new budget today, and recruiting volunteers is hard. But what is one conversation I could have? What's something small that I can point out to my church leadership and just say, hey, you know, if we just moved that table or asked someone different or we thought a little bit differently, what are some ways that you can begin to influence the culture of your church? Thank you so much.